"Sir, is that your wife?" She said it quietly. The woman in the parking booth, gray uniform, maybe 60, with reading glasses pushed up on her head like she'd forgotten. They were there. She had the look of someone who'd been working up to saying something for longer than I'd been standing in her lane. I just rolled my carry-on up to the exit of Lot C, 3 days in Cincinnati, supply chain conference, client dinners, the kind of trip that blurs together after enough of them. I'd parked here Sunday morning, took the shuttle to the terminal, and now it was Wednesday at noon. And all I wanted was to stop moving for a few hours. She was pointing past me. At the security monitor mounted above her shoulder, one of those gray-toned feeds, where everything looks like it's happening slightly underwater. I looked. My wife was on the screen, standing next to our second car, the dark blue one she'd used to drop me off Sunday morning. The one she was supposed to have driven straight home in afterward. The timestamp in the corner read Sunday, 11:47 a.m., 23 minutes after I'd checked my bag at the terminal. She wasn't alone. The man beside her was tall, dark jacket, one hand resting on the trunk of my car, the way you rest your hand on something that belongs to you. They weren't touching. But the distance between them, or the precise lack of it, told me everything before either of them moved. "We have 3 days of footage," the woman said softly. I kept thinking someone from management would flag it. Nobody did. "And then I saw your face when you walked up, and you look like the photo on the vehicle registration I pulled." She said it like an apology. "I'm sorry. I almost didn't say anything at all." "I'm glad you did," I told her. I meant it. My name is Peyton. I'm 32 years old. Before I started my own freight brokerage 4 years ago, I spent 6 years working cargo insurance fraud for a regional firm out of Memphis. That job teaches you specific things about people. Things that most people spend their entire lives grateful not to have to know. It teaches you that the distance between who someone is and who they present to you can be vast and maintained effortlessly for years. It teaches you to observe, to build a record, to keep what you feel separate from what you can prove. I thought I'd left that version of myself behind when I went into the brokerage side. Turned out, I'd just stored it somewhere. My wife and I had been married 9 years. We'd met in Austin at a mutual friend's birthday party when we were both 24. And by the time I was 26, she was the person I called first when anything happened. Good, bad, or unremarkable. We moved twice for my work, settled in Nashville. When she landed a director position in hospital administration, bought a house with a backyard big enough that our daughter could run circles in the evenings without hitting a fence. Our daughter was 8. 3rd grade, she collected rocks the way other kids collected sticker books. Deliberately, categorically, with opinions about each one. 9 years is long enough that you stop noticing when the temperature changes. Long enough that quiet can feel like peace, when maybe it's just distance. I hadn't thought about that distinction until I was standing in a parking lot, looking at a security monitor. The woman in the booth let me watch as much footage as she had queued up. Monday afternoon, same space, different angle. Tuesday morning, my wife arrived first, sat in the car for 12 minutes. He pulled in 7 minutes after she texted someone. I could see her looking at her phone. They left in his car. She came back alone. 2 hours and 19 minutes later, drove out, had the car back in the space by evening. I asked for the timestamps. She printed them on a receipt slip and slid it through the window. "I hope things work out," she said. She didn't sound like she believed they would. I thanked her, loaded my bag in the trunk, pulled out of the lot. She texted me at 12:41. "Did you land okay? Traffic always terrible coming out of there." And I replied, "Just got my bag, heading to the car." And that was the first lie I told her. It wouldn't be the last, but it's the only one I'm not ashamed of. There's a particular stillness that comes over you when something catastrophic is unfolding, and you haven't yet decided how to meet it. I drove 22 miles on the interstate, and I felt every single one. Radio off. Hands steady. I was acutely aware of my own awareness. The lane markers, the exit signs, the temperature reading on the dash. like my body had taken over the operational functions, while the rest of me processed what I'd just seen. I made one decision by the time I turned onto our street. I wasn't going to say a single word until I knew everything there was to know. Not one word. She was in the kitchen when I came in, home early. She looked up, gave me the automatic smile, and then, just for a half second, her expression recalibrated, adjusted, settled back into something warm and familiar. I caught it. 6 years of fraud investigation doesn't leave you. You're early, she said. Conference wrapped up faster than expected, I said. Smells good. She was making pasta. I kissed her cheek, took my bag upstairs, stood in the bathroom for 3 minutes, looking at the grout between the tiles. Then I washed my face and went back down and sat at the table while she told me about her week. That night I lay beside her in the dark and I listened to her breathe. Her phone was face down on the nightstand, which was new. For years she'd left it face up on the charger. Her breathing was slow, even. She went to sleep the way someone goes to sleep when they believe they're safe. I stayed awake for a long time. I thought about the receipt folded in my jacket pocket upstairs. I thought about our daughter, asleep down the hall, with 7 rocks, arranged in a specific order, on her windowsill. I thought about what I was going to do next, and what I was going to do after that. I didn't rage. I want to be precise about that. What I felt wasn't rage. It was something colder and more patient. Something that sat behind my ribs like a stone, and had no interest in moving. I began quietly the next day. We were on a shared family phone plan, and I still had the account credentials. She'd given them to me 18 months ago, to add our daughter's iPad. She hadn't thought about it since. Our cars were enrolled in the manufacturer's GPS app, which we'd set up together, after her car got broken into last spring. She'd forgotten about that too. I didn't review anything in real time. I set to log passively, and I went about my week. I also made a call. An old colleague from my insurance days. He'd transitioned into private investigation work about 3 years back. I sent him the timestamps from the parking footage and the partial plate I'd caught in one frame of Tuesday's footage. He came back to me in 3 days. I won't say the man's name. What I'll tell you is that he worked in pharmacy administration for the same hospital network where my wife was a director. Different building, different department, same parent organization. He was 41. Married. 2 daughters in middle school. He drove a black SUV and had a university parking sticker in the rear windshield, which was how my colleague had confirmed the plate. My colleague also sent me something else. There's a file on this guy, he said. State Medical Board. Preliminary inquiry, opened about 8 months ago. Hasn't gone public. I asked what for. Prescription irregularities. Scripts written under the name of a patient who died. Controlled substances. The board is building towards something, but it's still in early stages. I was quiet for a moment. Is my wife's name in that file? He hesitated. Witness list. She's not a target, but she's listed as someone with access to the relevant audit records during the relevant period. I thanked him. I hung up. I sat in my parked car outside a client's warehouse in Brentwood for about 15 minutes without moving. She knew. Whatever she'd told herself about this man, whatever story she'd constructed around it, whatever she'd decided it was and wasn't. She knew about the prescription issue. She was in administration. She had access. The preliminary inquiry named her as someone who could have identified the irregularity, which meant at some point, she'd looked at it and chosen to say nothing. She'd protected him instead. That changed things. I opened a folder on my laptop that night and began building a timeline. Not out of anger, out of habit, and out of clarity. Date, observation, source, corroboration. The same structure I'd used for 6 years documenting fraudulent claims. It felt familiar in a way that was almost comforting. A few nights later, she fell asleep with her iPad on the nightstand instead of her phone. I got up for water at around 1 in the morning and the screen was still lit. Photos app, iCloud. Last photo opened. I don't know why I looked at it. I just did. My wife at a restaurant table. Candlelight. head tilted back, mid-law, the way she laughs when she's completely caught off guard by something funny. Completely unguarded. There was a glass of red wine in her hand, and her eyes were lit up in a way I recognized, because I used to be the reason for it. She used to look like that in the mornings, years ago when our daughter was still in diapers. And we were running on no sleep, and somehow still finding things to laugh about, before the coffee finished brewing. Now it was a Tuesday night, she'd told me, was a department dinner. I went back to bed. I didn't sleep. The attorney I hired came recommended by my business partner, who'd gone through his own divorce 3 years earlier and navigated it with a precision that I'd noted. At the time, I brought a folder to the first meeting. She asked me what outcome I was working toward. I said, protect my daughter, protect the assets we'd built, and make sure the record reflects accurately what happened. She said that was achievable. We got to work. The financial piece was clean once we started pulling threads. Our home equity line had seen several draws over 18 months, small amounts, each logged under the broad category of home maintenance. I went through the corresponding months in our shared expense folder. No invoices, no contractor receipts, nothing that matched. The draws totaled just under $11,000. Not catastrophic, but deliberate. I cross-referenced dates against my old colleague's timeline. A weekend in March, Charleston, based on the hotel charge my colleague had already found. 3 shorter stays in the Nashville area. Restaurant charges on evenings she'd told me she was working late. My attorney filed for legal separation on a Friday morning. That same afternoon, she put protective orders in place on the house. A legal hold that prevented either party from liquidating it. Without court approval, I moved our daughter's college fund into a separate protected trust, which I had full legal authority to do, given the structure of the account we'd established years earlier. The joint equity line was frozen pending proceedings. She didn't know yet. The medical board piece. I kept it simple. I called the board's inquiry line, identified myself as the husband of a listed witness, and said I believed she might have information relevant to their ongoing inquiry that hadn't yet been formally collected. I said I wasn't certain what she knew or when. I said I thought someone should ask her directly, given her administrative access. I didn't editorialize. I didn't accuse anyone of anything. I just pointed and stepped back. 46 hours later, she called me from the hospital parking lot. Her voice was flat. Compliance pulled me in today. They had questions. About him. About what I knew and when. What did you tell them? I asked. A long pause. The truth. Most of it. That's the right call, I said. Peyton. Her voice broke on my name. How long have you known? Long enough, I said. Come home tonight. We'll talk in person. She came home at 6. Our daughter was at my sister's for the night. I'd arranged it the day before. Told my sister only that we needed the evening for something adult. My sister asked me once, just once, if I was okay. I told her I'd explain later. She didn't push. She never does. My wife sat at the kitchen table. She looked like someone who'd been running for a long time and had finally stopped. No makeup. Hair pulled back. Her hands were wrapped around a mug of coffee I'd set out for her without thinking. 9 years of reflex. She said, I know I have no right to ask you to understand any of this. I nodded. It started about 2 years ago. She looked at the table. He listened to me. That sounds so small. But it had been so long since I felt like anyone was listening to me, like the things I was thinking were worth hearing. She shook her head. I know exactly how that sounds. I knew how it sounded. I also knew it was probably true. I wasn't going to be dishonest with myself about what our marriage had been. Something had gone quiet in us a long time ago, and neither of us had done the work to fix it. That didn't excuse what she did. But I wasn't going to pretend the context didn't exist. The prescriptions, I said. She flinched. He told me it was a coding error. A billing mistake that happened after a patient passed. He said it was being corrected internally, and that flagging it externally would create a problem out of something that was already being handled. She met my eyes for the first time. I believed him, or I wanted to. I'm not sure anymore which one it was. There's a difference, I said. I know. We sat there for a moment. The refrigerator hummed. A car passed on the street outside. Is there anything I can do? She asked. Tell compliance everything, I said. Don't try to protect him. That window closed. All you can do now is be completely transparent about what you knew and when you knew it. It's the only thing that gives you any ground to stand on. She looked at me like she'd expected something else, something louder. I think she'd been braced for volume. When it didn't come, she didn't seem relieved. She seemed more afraid. I filed for separation, I said. My attorney will reach out next week about the process. I want shared custody. I want our daughter's life to stay as stable as possible. I want this to be as clean as it can be. Her breath caught. Are you going to try to take her? No, I said. She needs her mother. But she needs the mother who's honest and present, not the one who's been disappearing for 2 years. I stood. I need that mother for our daughter. That's all I'm asking for. She put her face in her hands. I'm not here to punish you, I said. But I'm also done pretending. We both know this wasn't fixable. I think you've known it for longer than you've admitted. She didn't say anything. I walked to the hallway. I'm going to watch the game, I said. You can let yourself out whenever you're ready. She left about 40 minutes later. I heard the front door close. I turned the TV down and sat in the quiet for a while. The man was placed on indefinite administrative leave 2 weeks into the compliance review. His wife filed for separation the same week, according to my old colleague. The medical board inquiry advanced to a formal investigation. Whether criminal charges follow is still pending. My wife cooperated fully with compliance. She was not terminated. She received a final written warning and was required to complete a formal ethics review course. Her attorney communicated to mine that she was grateful it hadn't gone further. I believe that's true. I also believe she knows she earned a worse outcome than the one she got, and that she'll spend a long time living with that. We've been separated for 4 months. Handoffs happen at the end of the driveway. One of us pulls up, the other waits. We don't go inside each other's space. It's working, more or less. Some evenings it feels almost professional. Our daughter calls me every night when she's at her mother's. Last Tuesday, she told me she found a piece of rose quartz in the schoolyard and saved it for me. I told her I didn't have a rock collection. She said, I did now. I don't know if I'll ever fully forgive my wife. I don't know if forgiveness is quite the right frame for what I'm working toward. What I can tell you is that I stopped carrying it the way I was carrying it in those first weeks, like luggage I couldn't put down. I set it somewhere, not because she deserved that from me, but because hauling it everywhere was only ever hurting me, and I had things that needed my full attention. What I carry, instead, is something cleaner, the memory of sitting in that parking lot in the afternoon light, knowing what I knew, and choosing to use my head instead of doing something I couldn't undo. The memory of my attorney saying, "You documented everything before you said a word. That's why we're in excellent position." The memory of my daughter's voice on the phone, steady and uncomplicated, telling me about a rock. I think about the woman in the parking booth sometimes. The careful way she said is that your wife, like she was absorbing some of the impact alongside me, like she understood what it meant to hand someone a truth they couldn't give back. There are people who say something when they don't have to, who look at a stranger and decide that honesty is worth the discomfort of delivering it. I don't know what made her choose to speak instead of staying quiet. I know I drove home differently after she did. I know I built something that afternoon. Documentation, attorneys, a protected trust, an exit that kept my daughter steady. And all of it started with her deciding not to look away. I'm telling this because someone listening might be in that in-between space right now, where you know something is wrong and you haven't decided what to do with it yet. And I want to say clearly, you don't have to blow everything up. You don't have to perform. You just have to be honest about what you know, precise about what you can prove, and clear about what you're protecting. For me, it was my daughter, Every decision I made was in service of keeping her world intact. The rest, what my wife loses, what he loses, what they lose together, I never owned any of that. It was never mine to carry. I set it down. I drove home. I watched my daughter arrange 8 rocks on the kitchen windowsill, in an order only she understood, and then explain it to me for 20 minutes. For the first time, in longer than I could name, I was exactly where I needed to be.